So you're the screenwriter, you're also producer, but you're the one writing this, and you have a lot of characters and timelines to keep track of. What's your desk look like? What kind of notes do you have?
My desk looks like a mess. It looks like an absolute disaster on this movie because there were so many different characters and storylines and time periods and types of robots and historical moments to be true to. It was, my desk is often pretty messy, but this one had probably more papers on it than usual. The thing that kept it straight for me and kept my sanity intact was I use note cards. And as a writer, I always use note cards in boarding a movie out. But in this movie especially, what I would do is I had different colored note cards for each of the characters. Ooh. So I would have these sort of timelines up on a bulletin board wherever I was, my office or home in LA, my office and apartment in Montreal when we were shooting. And it was just at a glance, I would make sure that each of the characters had a coherent arc and story that I was telling. And then there would be that would be its own bulletin board. Then there'd be another bulletin board that was like the checkerboard of how they all intersected.
Wow.
So yeah, that looked like a crazy madman's rainbow piece of art.
Well, it turned out very beautiful.
Thank you very much.
So let's level up. You're doing the whole cinematic universe that Fox is building here. You're also writing Fantastic Four, Apocalypse. What's your organization system like for that?
I go movie by movie. So I tend to be really focused on whatever I'm writing, and then it moves into the next phase. And I have great producers on Fantastic Four and on the X-Men movies. Lauren Schuler-Donner on the X-Men movies with Hutch Parker. Hutch is also producing Fantastic Four with me. So we have a great team of people, and when I'm sort of deep diving on a first draft of a script, I tend to completely immerse in that. And then I come out and everybody else gives their thoughts, and the revision process is a little bit more mechanical, and I can be sort of in more than one place at the same time. The first draft of something, like as I'm deep digging into the first draft of Apocalypse, that's where I just get lost down the rabbit hole.
Is that what you're writing right now?
That's what I'm working on.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, I'll keep away from asking about that, even though I want to. But the other thing is, with this fan base in particular, you're under much more scrutiny than you would with another kind of film.
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, I approach these movies as a fan. So in some ways, the harshest critic of these films is me.
Oh, good.
And I read the fans online, and
you do.
They can be very harsh, and they can wish terminal diseases on me, as some have. And I know it's because of a love of the books, which I share. I know it's because they want these movies to be great. They don't want them to be bad. And I obviously have the same aspiration. So I think the first critic for me is me, the fan who read Days of Future Past when I was a kid and never dared dream there'd even be a movie, let alone that I'd be working on it. But, as the comic book movies have sort of exploded, starting to think, oh, maybe there will be a Days of Future Past movie one day, it has to be great. It has to be as great as when I read the book for the first time and had my mind blown. It can't just be a generic, okay movie, forgetting even a bad movie, which nobody intends to make. But I wanted this film to be as ambitious as the comic felt when I read it for the first time.
Oh, I like that, and I think it does come across
Thank
that way.
you.
Well, the last thing I want to ask you, all right, speaking of character arcs and the book versus the movie, I think the biggest change here might be Mystique. On the one hand, I think she's actually moving closer to her comic book character, but then also you've really made her much more important and integral to the whole X-Men movement and universe. What sparked that decision?
Well, part of it was, the story we wanted to tell in X-Men First Class was the story of a young woman torn as to sort of whether she was going to go to the dark side or the light side. And it felt like she was the best way to dramatize the split between Eric and Charles. So she became in some ways like the MacGuffin of First Class, even though there was all this plot and stuff happening. To me, the end of X-Men First Class is the moment where Raven makes the decision to go with Eric. And so because that became sort of almost the story of that movie, we just continued it in Days of Future Past, and it's such that from the very beginning, I felt like this story is young Charles' story. It's seeing young Charles as a broken man, lost his legs, friends, lost hope, becoming the Patrick Stewart we know from X1 and through 3. And Raven's such a huge part of that process for him, in terms of part of the reason he lost hope and part of the reason he actually gets it back at the end of the film.
I see.
So like that, once I knew that, which is that she was going to be in some ways like the reflection of what was going on with Charles, she just took more prominence in the film.
Bye.